Shabbat Shalom, family. Shabbat Shalom. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great and happy day. I hope everybody's having a blessed and peaceful Shabbat today. A blessed and peaceful Shabbat. Yo, yo, yo. Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Okay, very odd. Very odd. Thank you for that, Awakening Goddess, and welcome to the Shabbat lesson. Okay, excuse me, y'all. So let me go back to what I was saying. I found it very peculiar that as we read from Luke chapter 4, verse 1, the same instance happened to Yahshua, okay, where he was put under or through an illusion. In my vision, Eve, and I don't know where y'all heard from or where the sound went out. So please forgive me. I really don't know where the sound went out. And um, hmm. So look, again, in my vision, Eve was running and she was looking like this in bewilderment at a voice that she heard. Now, in the movie Black Adam, there's a character named Dr. Fate. Dr. Fate has the ability to make people believe that they're under some sort of illusion, okay, illusion, and some place that they, through the illusion, they're in a new place, even though they're not really there, okay? And he can speak to them while they feel or believe that they're in this place that they really aren't. And that's similar to what happened with Eve in my vision. She was running, and even though I was next to her and she didn't see me, she was doing herself up, but she was in a place that wasn't looking like the garden, even though I knew through discernment that he was still in the garden. And the serpent or the Nahash was using this illusion to further beguile Eve. Okay. Now, the same thing happened to Yahshua, where he was attempted to be beguiled. Okay. And Yahshua being filled, this is Luke chapter 4, verse 1. And Yahshua being filled with the set apart spirit returned from the Yarden and was led by the Spirit into the wilderness, being tried for 40 days by the devil. And in those days he did not eat at all. And afterward, when they had ended, he was hungry. And the devil said to him, if you are the Son of Elohim, command this stone to become bread. But Yahshua answered him, saying, it has been written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word of Elohim. And the devil, taking him up on a high mountain, showed him all the reigns of the world in a moment of time. So you see, right here, Yahshua is being showed all the reigns of the world just like that. Okay, the only way that would be possible if there was an illusion presented to Yahshua, which made Yahshua see everything at once. Okay, and in a similar fashion, Eve, in my vision, was showed an illusion. This illusion that Eve saw was an environment foreign to her. And it was because the environment was foreign to her that she was willing to do whatever was proposed to her in order to get back to where she was familiar with, which is the garden. All right. And the devil, taking him up on a high mountain, showed him all the reigns of the world in a moment of time. And the devil said to him, all this authority I shall give you, and their esteem, for it has been delivered to me, and I give it to whomever I wish. Now, the devil is saying it has been given to him because the kingdoms of the world have given to the devil. The world has been given to the hands of the wicked. Okay. Now, if then you worship before me, all shall be yours. So the devil is trying to beguile Yahshua and trick Yahshua into bowing down to him and worshiping the devil. Okay. But Yahshua answered him and said, get behind me, Satan, for it has been written, you shall worship Yahweh your Elohim, and him only you shall serve. So Yahshua rebuked the devil. and commanded the devil to get behind him, meaning get away, flee from me. Okay, because Yahshua was hip to the game. Yahshua knew that he wasn't going to be beguiled. Okay, but the devil continued, and he brought him to Yerushalayim, set him on the edge of the set apart place, and said to him, if you are the son of Elohim, throw yourself down from here. For it has been written, he shall command his messengers concerning you to guard over you. We read about that in Psalm 91, verse 11. And in their hands they shall bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone. That's Psalm 91, verse 12. Now, you see how quickly the devil brought Yahshua from the mountaintop to Yerushalayim, to the set apart place? You see that? So we're seeing some sort of illusion take place. Okay. Yahshua is still in the wilderness, though. This is why in verse 1 we see the environment that Yahshua is in. He just left the Yarden and he's in the wilderness. Okay. But somehow he ends up on a mountain, and then in a split moment, another split moment, he ends up in Jerusalem or Jerusalem in the set apart place. So the devil is playing mind tricks. Okay. Which the devil is good at, y'all. Side note. And Yahushua answering said to him, it has been said, you shall not try Yahuwah your Elohim. And when the devil had ended every trial, he went away from him until a convenient time. And Yahushua returned in the power of the Spirit, okay, to Galil, and news of him went out through all the surrounding country. Now, Galil is another way of saying Galilee. Okay, that's another way of saying Galilee. Now, right here, we see that it's not too far fetched to hear about the devil, the serpent, the Nahash, trying an individual to tempt them into breaking the commands of the Most High. Okay, excuse me. Now let's go to Genesis chapter 3, and we're going to see the account of Eve. Now, one thing that was revealed to me in this vision, it was the removal of the chastity. Okay, it was the removal of the chastity of this woman. Obviously, we know that Eve ate of the fruit. She ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and she passed that that fruit, quote unquote, unto her husband Adam. And Adam ate of it as well. And through Adam, sin entered into the world, and through Eve, sin was birthed into the world. Sin had become a part of the seed, okay? The seed of Adam. Now, this is something, and please bear with me as I articulate this, because in this vision, many facets came and revealed to me. Now, there was an original archetype of man and woman. There was a moment in the garden where man and woman had not tasted of death and was immortal. Okay? Was immortal. And when Adam and Hava, or Adam and Eve, ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they were knocked down. They lost their immortality and immediately took on corruption. Okay? Let me do my best to articulate how this was revealed to me. When Eve was beguiled and ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that was synonymous with her losing her virginity. Okay. Now, we are familiar with a physical virginity that a woman holds, a young lady holds, who has not had relations with a young man or a man, right? Before the tree was eaten of, both man and woman were considered virgin. in the eyes of Kai. Okay, incorruptible, because the removal of virginity without adhering to the law, statutes, and commands of that virginity, meaning now a man is to take that woman to be his wife, and she is to be that man's wife, and he is to be her husband. We see a time and day right now where the chastity of an individual, a woman, is removed through the act of sexual relations with an individual who can take her virginity or remove her virginity. And when a woman lays down for the first time with an individual, with a man who she does not seek to be wife to, and a man who does not seek to make that young lady his wife, there's a beguilement that goes on. All women, for the most part, can relate to what I'm about to say, and a lot of young men can as well. The man takes on the form of this serpent like energy, okay? There's this slick beguilement that takes place. I know many young brothers have, even myself at one time or another, have tried to coerce a young woman into, as I'm a young man, obviously, in our teenage years. Let's get some context. Our teenage years is when a lot of our chastity is removed, right? But let's go back to our teenage years. Okay, let's get some age context. And I won't be too graphic with this, okay? But we know in our teenage years that a young woman, she is still in her physical virginity. She is often propositioned and attempted to have relations with a young man through beguilement. Okay. He says all sort of things to pressurize her, to peer pressure her, to make her feel like if she does not uh, move along with him in this sexual advances, that she will be talked about at school, she'd be ridiculed, she won't be looked at as cool. This is what peer pressure is. On the flip side of that, I know through the years I've been here, listening to certain young women and certain women as they grow up, being that fly on the wall, that women have conversations, young ladies have locker room conversations and sleepovers and slumber parties, and they talk about these things as well, but from a young girl perspective. And a young girl doesn't want to be peer pressured by her own friends. So if word is spread that she hasn't had sexual relations yet, then she won't be construed as cool. She won't be seen as cool in the eyes of her peers as well. And she might have to deal with being talked about, or um, not being seen as somebody who's hip, not being seen somebody who's jumped that threshold into womanhood. Okay. And that's how a lot of our young people are coerced into sexual before they're actually ready to involve themselves in that, right? And so when I thought about the vision that I had, I immediately realized that Eve and Adam had been taken, but Eve first had been taken from her chastity, from her virginity, okay, and had been brought down. Now, this virginity has everything to do with the physical temple, okay? Just like modern day virginity has everything to do with the physical temple, okay? And I feel the validity of this perspective because when we read in Genesis chapter 3, we read an account of what happened afterwards. See, before Adam and Eve ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and I'm just going to stay on Eve real quick. Eve hadn't had children, okay? Eve hadn't had children according to the biblical account, okay? She had not had children yet. It was until afterward that she had children, Abel and Cain, or Cain and Abel, okay? And I found that to be very interesting because just like a woman who doesn't have sexual relations cannot have a child before she lays down with a man, it's the same way Eve did not have a child until after she ate of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Okay. Now, unlike Yahshua, Eve was not adept at dealing with and handling the temptation that she was faced with. Okay. Yahshua was adept at handling the temptation. So he knew better. He knew better than to fall for the whims of the deceiver. He knew better than to allow himself to be tempted by the devil. However, Eve was not in a similar mental aptitude. She wasn't aware of what was taking place to the point that she could resist the temptation. And that reminds me of our young women who, when they're faced with a situation where they have to make a decision about if they're going to allow the young man to enter into them or not and to break her virginity, her chastity, oftentimes, more often than not, the young woman is pressurized and doesn't know the depth of her decision. And just like Eve, when she ate of the knowledge of good and evil, everything was changed in a moment. There was no going back. And just like Eve, the young woman of today, when she lays down with an individual and allows that man to penetrate her, okay, and enter into her, the decision cannot be taken back. And immediately there's this sense of overwhelming, deep seated guilt that takes place. And what I've seen in my life is that instead of dealing with the guilt, because at that point, there's no going back, the woman tries to sweep it under the rug, the young lady sweeps it under the rug, or she continues to move forward in that energy as if nothing is wrong. She won't admit that anything is wrong with that, but she knows deep within her heart that something just happened, especially when the young man is only seeking a thrill for that day, especially when the young man has no true love on his heart towards that young lady. And what is love? Again, we're not talking about romanticism. We're talking about the love of the Most High, keeping the law, statutes, and commands. And if the young man had the love of the Most High in his heart towards that young woman, then that young woman would be kept as his wife. Okay, but instead, what we see is the young woman being pressured and beguiled into laying down due to all sorts of external temptations and peer pressures. But at that point in her life, she doesn't understand the depth of her decision. What was also revealed to me is that naivete isn't innocence, okay? Naivete is not innocence. Keeping the commandments of the Most High is innocence. And that was a profound statement to me when it was revealed to me. Naivete, or not knowing something through ignorance, is not innocence, okay? But keeping the commandments is innocence. And when I thought about the depth of that statement, I realized that innocence has everything to do with whether one is guilty or not. Guilty of what? Guilty of breaking a statute, guilty of breaking a commandment, guilty of breaking a bylaw, guilty of breaking an ordinance, okay? Guilty of breaking a rule. And so when I thought about the depth of that statement, naivete is not innocence, but keeping the commandments is innocence. I thought about anyone who keeps the commandments and doesn't break them. Well, if one kept the commandments and didn't break them, the commandments of the Most High didn't break them, then they would never be accused of being guilty of anything because they kept the commandments. It is only when we break the commandments that we begin to be guilty. Okay, and you're guilty of breaking the commandments, and that means we are sinners. Okay, and if we are sinners, that means we need a propitiation or a sacrifice, a payment for those sins to be seen right in the eyes of the Most High again. Okay, and one of the other things that really got me was just how deep the beguilement of the enemy will go. And when we're talking about the temple, we're actually talking about a restoration of this temple. You see, man and woman were made in the exact image of the Most High. We read about this in first, I mean, excuse me, in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. This is where we read of this. And so this is why we know that the original temple, the original body, the original man and woman were immortal. We know this. Okay. This is what upset the Most High so much after Adam and Eve ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, because that decision lowered their status and their estate deeper into the physical 3D realm. It lowered the status and estate of all men into a place of corruption. And so when we talk about the schematics, the measurements, the dimensions of the temple that Solomon was charged to build on behalf of the Most High, we were seeing an immaculate, not immaculate like immaculate conception, but an immaculate as in no blemish. Okay, as in, that's immaculate, bro. Talk like we see a car, something, a dope bike, and we like, that's clean, bro. You clean for that. So we seeing something that's very clean and well put together, constructed to precision. Okay, and that's what our original bodies were. They were bodies that were constructed to precision, so much so that the Most High will seek to dwell within those bodies. Okay. And the image of the Most High is male and female. This is why you often hear me say Most High Mama and Papa, because there is, I know that's all controversial, ooh, but there's so much proof of that statement. Okay, there's so much proof of that statement. From wisdom being identified as her, feminine, to the Ruach HaKodesh itself being a feminine aspect, or the set apart and holy feminine aspect of the Father. This is why it's so important to learn Hebraic language, because when you learn parts of speech, one beautiful thing about the Holy Tongue and the Hebrew tongue is that it's broken up into male and female. Okay, the actual speech is broken up contextually into male and female. There are masculine elements to the Hebrew tongue and there are feminine aspects to the Hebrew tongue. And do you know what aspect of the language Ruach HaKodesh falls under? Yes, it's associated as the holy or set apart spirit of the Father, the Most High, but it is married and joined with the Father as the feminine aspect. You can look up this for yourself. So everyone that deals with the holy tongue, and I'm talking about even, I gotta give it to them in this sense, the so-called Jewish people that are in the land now. The reason that they keep a lot of the truth from Christians and people in the West when it comes to the Hebrew language is because Christianity teaches us a triune God of three masculine energies. So when we think back in Christianity, we think of Father, Son, Holy Ghost, and Holy Ghost being masculine. And I hate to break it to you, but I think that that's part of the reason why homosexuality in the West, because the removal of the feminine energy as all power being given to three dude energies, in a sense, it can be very confusing. Okay. It can be very confusing. And that's what homosexuality is, confusion. We see mama and papa, and then we see them come together and we see child. We see two coming together to make one child. That is where two come together to make one. Okay. But when we look at the Hebraic thought form and we look at the Holy Tongue from its original essence, we see masculine and feminine, and we see them come together, okay, to form the Word, okay? The only begotten Son. Ooh. When we look at Adam and Eve, we are seeing the archetype of the image of the Most High, male and female. Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. So, what we are seeing is an original high estate or highly esteemed estate of this image as coming forth through man and woman, as being manifested in the form of man and woman in this physical place. But when they ate of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, these two individuals were brought lower in esteem. And that is how the original sin entered into this world. Okay. So, I think I'm gonna have to do a lesson on this, what I'm about to say, to go deeper into it. But for those of you who are new supporters of this channel, who have just joined, I have to make this clear real quick. My stance on what I see today. Okay, and I'm gonna do my best to be very brief about this. All over YouTube right now, we see Hebrew Israelite people, especially men, getting out in the streets, the byways, the highways, the hedges, and doing their best to teach the word of the Most High and wake up the Israelite people. And we see a lack of attention in a righteous and upright and truthful way in regards to the Gentile nations. We see a lot of hatreds being spewed and a lot of bitterness and a lot of anger being spewed to the other nations, and we see a lack of understanding and wisdom. Okay, and I have to say this may be just as controversial as the other statements that I made, more so controversial amongst Hebrew Israelite people that are coming into the truth, who have been listening to the rhetoric of the camps. Okay, one thing that we have to remember as Hebrew Israelite men is that there is order and to everything, decency and order to everything. But the Most High is not author of confusion. Okay. I often hear that the Israelite people are the only ones who will be receiving salvation. I hear this. I hear this a lot. I hear this a lot. And it's coming to the point now where I saw a heartbreaking video of some street preaching from one of these camps out here. And a sister who was very sincere sister, who revealed to these brothers that her father was a so-called white man, was chopped down. I mean, totally chopped down. And her mother was an Israelite woman. And she was chopped down to the point where she almost began to get irate. She was irate and she had to be separated from these brothers who were having no mercy on her at all. And their rhetoric was that she could not be an Israelite, okay, and therefore she couldn't be saved, and that the Bible wasn't for her, the scriptures weren't for her. Well, I'm going to say this. The reason that Yahshua came, okay, and I'm gonna be very clear on this, and this is why we might have to have a separate lesson on this, because I see this in popularity. Yahshua came as an Israelite of Judah, okay? The law, statutes, and commands, the 613 law, statutes, and commands were given to the people of Israel. But why? We always say, you'll hear a lot of Israelite men say the law, statutes, and commands were given to the people of Israel, but we never say why. Many of us never say why. Why were the law, statutes, and commands given to the people of Israel? So I'm going to speak from this point on as if you know the narrative and you know what's going on. Okay. If I have to do another lesson on this, I will and get more in depth. The law, statutes, and commands were given to the Israelite men so that Israelite men would be the light to the rest of the world. Simple as that, including Gentile nations. All of those of the other nations who wanted to learn about the Most High, wanted to keep the law, statutes, and commands given to the Israelites, have an opportunity to do that. Okay? The Most High will not keep the law, statutes, and commands away from the world so that the rest of the world cannot do and keep the law, statutes, and commands. Why? Because sin entered into the world through Adam, who is the father of all of the human people. Now, what is the significance of this? Adam was given the original command not to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And Adam was given the original command of caretaking the world. Okay, watching over the animals, caretaking his wife, making sure that the garden was tended to. Those were the original commandments given to Adam. Okay, when Adam ate of the fruit of the knowledge of from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, sin entered into his bloodline. Sin entered into man. Okay, so Adam is the father of the nations of people that eventually came from him. He's the original earth father. Okay, sin entered into the world way before the Hebrew Israelites were even thought of and birthed into this world. Sin entered into the world way before the 613 laws, statutes, and commands given to Moses on behalf of the Most High toward the children of Israel were ever administered. Sin then entered into the world. Sin entered into the world before Noah. Okay. So when we see the image of Yahshua as being a Hebrew Israelite of the tribe of Judah, we have to remember. See, this is where bitterness, envy, and jealousy stir up in people. And this is where rhetoric and bias inject into the truth. Yes, Yeshua came as an Israelite of Judah for the children of Israel because we, as the men of Israel, had a special designation and stewardship in the eyes of the Most High to be the priest and the royal priesthood of the Most High. We were called to be a nation of priests. Priests are those who keep and watch over the law, statutes, and commands given to them and delegate those law, statutes, and commands out into the world for those who are interested in keeping them. Now, it just so happen that the priests will also have wives and they will have children. So a nation will be built. So the nation of Israel, okay, Judah and Israel together, was supposed to be the forerunners of keeping that truth and that knowledge for the rest of the world, being lights to the rest of the world on how to act, how to move, how to live, how to culturally respond to one another, and thus have. When Israelite people fell into sin, meaning transgressing the law, statutes, and commands of the Most High, we were punished and scattered and needed propitiation, needed an ultimate payment for us breaking the law. But guess what? Guess what? Because the original sin entered in through Adam, those people who were not His world also needed a propitiation for sin. Okay? How do we know this? Because the scriptures call Yahshua. What do the scriptures call Yahshua, y'all? What do the scriptures call Yahshua? I wait if anybody knows. What is another name that the scriptures call Yahshua? Does anyone know? Does anyone know? The scriptures call Yahshua the second Adam. Okay? The scriptures call Yahshua the second Adam. Okay? Did y'all know that? Did you know that? Let's go to First Corinthians real quick. And we're going to get back to everything. All of this has to do with the temple, y'all. All of this has to do with the temple. Let's go to First Corinthians chapter 15. Okay? Verses 5 through 49. Okay? And so it has been written, the first man, Adam, became a living being. The last Adam, a life-giving spirit. Ooh, are y'all listening? The spiritual, however, was not first, but the natural, and afterward the spiritual. The first man was of the earth, earthy. The second man is the master from heaven. So now we know that the first Adam is the one that was placed into the garden. Okay. The first Adam is the man that's through which sin entered into the world. This is why the whole world needs a propitiation for sin. But it is the second Adam. You're welcome. It is the second Adam, Yahushua, who would be the propitiation for the sin of the Israelite people for breaking the law, statutes, and commands given to them, given to our people, so that we would be lights to the world, and also a propitiation for the sins of the world, of those Gentile people who somehow was stirred up by the Spirit of the Most High to want to cleave unto the law, statutes, and commands of the Most High. Okay? Yes, there is a hierarchy. Yes, there will be a spiritual hierarchy in heaven. The scriptures tell us that it is the Hebrew Israelite people who will rule alongside Hamashiach. Hamashiach is the Hebrew Israelite of Judah. Okay? There will be a hierarchy in the kingdom, the new kingdom. just like there's a hierarchy now. It is the people who want to be in league with the devil who are ruling now, and the children of the Most High at the bottom. Okay, the Gentiles were given an opportunity to rule over the children of Israel. This is why we see what we see now. This isn't a mistake. Okay, but in the new kingdom, those who were last will be made first. And the people of the Most High who are at the bottom right now in this present kingdom will be made at the top of the kingdom to come. Now, that's a true statement according to the scriptures. However, Gentile people of the other nations will be in the new kingdom and will receive salvation as well. So, all of this idea that salvation is only for the Hebrew Israelites, we have to ask which salvation? Oh, the salvation of being picked up and being redeemed from the four corners of the world and our enslavement and our captivity. Okay. But the salvation has levels to it. Okay. Let me continue in First Corinthians chapter 15, verses 45 to 49. And so it has been written, the first man, Adam, became a living spirit, or excuse me, a living being. The last Adam, a life-giving spirit. The spiritual, however, was not first, but the natural, and afterward the spiritual. The first man was of the earth, earthy. The first Adam, okay? The first man was of the earth, earthy. The second man is the master from heaven, Yahshua. As is the earthy, so also are those who are earthy. What does that mean? That means that as Adam was earthy, meaning as Adam was in sin, so are all of those who are the children of Adam. Okay, that's everybody that's alive today. Everybody is a child of Adam. Okay, check this. Well, actually, not everybody. We're gonna get in that maybe in a few minutes. But for the most part, everyone who fell into sin is a child of Adam. Okay, I'll say it like that. As is the earthy, so also are those who are earthy. And as is the heavenly, so also are those who are heavenly. Okay, once you begin to move to the election, okay, once you have been set apart, now you are as the heavenly, waiting for your redemption. Okay, that's what that means. And as we have borne the likeness of the earthy, meaning as we have taken on a likeness of Adam in sin, a body of sin, body of corruption, we also bear the likeness of the heavenly. Okay. And this I say, brothers, flesh and blood is unable to inherit the reign of Elohim, neither does corruption inherit incorruption. You see, we were put into a form of corruption when Adam and Eve transgressed and ate from the law of, excuse me, ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That is when our bodies went into corruption and we no longer had the immortal spiritual body that was originally created in the image of the Most High. Okay. And this I say, brothers, that flesh and blood is unable to inherit the reign of Elohim, neither does corruption inherit incorruption. See, I speak a secret to you. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. For the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. For this, corruptible has to put on incorruption, and this mortal to put on immortality. And when this corruptible has put on incorruption, and this mortal has put on immortality, then come to be the word that has been written. Death is swallowed up in overcoming, from Isaiah chapter 28, verse 5. O death, where's your sting? O grave, where is your overcoming? Okay, Hoshana chapter 13, verse 14 as well. So we see that corruption was inherited by us in the Garden of Eden through the actions of Adam and Eve. But we see that Adam, who is rightfully termed the first Adam, was not the second Adam. Okay. And it is Yahshua HaMashiach who is termed the second Adam, who is a corrector. Okay. excuse me, a corrector of the actions of the first Adam. And Yahshua HaMashiach is the mediator and the one who stands in between the sin of man and the forgiveness of the Most High. Okay, so it's a really cool dynamic. But the point of it all is this: our temple, our physical body, it has to go through a period where, just like the temple of the Most High, and this is what seems to be, when we talk about uh, 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 a shadow of things to come, for instance, we're talking about things that happen to us as people and that also showcase what's going to happen, okay, spiritually, okay? We read about this in Colossians chapter 2, verse 17, for instance. Let's get it, okay? Because I think that it's very important for us to truly, truly understand what's going on. Because we're talking about essentially being saved, and we're talking about our bodies going from corruptible to incorruptible, mortal to immortality. All right. This is perfect, actually, because when we read in Colossians, we see, okay, this is pretty good. We see what happened again in the garden in a sense. And then we see how that's being corrected by Yahshua, well, the Most High through Yahshua. Okay. Uh, let's start at verse 13 of Colossians chapter 2. And you, being dead in your trespasses and the uncircumcision of your flesh, he has made alive together with him, having forgiven you all trespasses, having blotted out that which was written by hand against us, by the dogmas which stood against us. And he has taken it out of the way, having nailed it to the stake, having stripped the principalities and the authorities, having made a public display of them, having prevailed over them in it. Let no one therefore judge you in eating or in drinking or in respect of a festival or a new moon or Sabbaths or Sabbats, which are a shadow of what is to come, but the body of Yahshua HaMashiach. Let no one deprive you of the prize, one who takes delight in false humility and worship of messengers, taking his stand on what he has not seen, puffed up by his fleshly mind, and not holding fast to the head, from whom all the body, nourished and knit together by joints and ligaments, grows with the growth of Elohim. The head of the man is Yahshua HaMashiach. The head of the children is the mother. The head of the wife or the mother is the man. The head of the man is Yahshua HaMashiach. And the head of Yahshua HaMashiach is the Most High Yahuwah. This is the spiritual hierarchy that has been dispatched to us. Okay? When we go away from this hierarchy, we allow the serpent to beguile us. This is the reason why, according to the scriptures, and why we know, according to the scriptures, that Yahshua did indeed come for all, both Israelite and Gentile, who seek to forgiveness or seek forgiveness and repentance. Okay? When we look at the story of Eve and Adam, or Adam and Eve, which we're going to do now, we're going to see what I shared earlier with you according to my vision that I had yesterday rising. So, a recap on that very quickly. Eve didn't see me in the vision. I was next to Eve and I was outside of Eve's. Okay, so in other words, even though I was next to Eve and she was being presented with an illusion that frightened her, I still knew that she was in the garden. Okay, the Nahash or the serpent made it appear to Eve as though she was outside of the garden someplace else in my vision. And that frightened Eve. And all Eve wanted to do was get back into the garden. She didn't realize that she was being beguiled in my vision. She was willing to do whatever it took to get back into the garden. When she ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, she immediately had a guilt complex pushed over her because she knew in that moment that she had done something wrong. Okay? In my vision. And the whole time Eve was running in this area, it was like a time lapse where she was moving normal speed, but the clouds overhead were moving very fast, and lightning bolts were dropping to the sky very fast. And even though there appeared to be light on the ground, all over the grass, all over the grain, all over the wheat, the sky itself was bluish gray, as if a storm was rolling in at fast pace. Okay? The whole time, I knew this voice we were hearing was that of the serpent. That's why I referenced that movie Black Adam and the character Dr. Fate, who was a sorcerer who was able to make the individuals he was fighting believe that they were in a place that they really weren't. Okay? They can be made to believe that they were someplace else while listening to his voice, almost as if they were being hypnotized. And that would give him an opportunity to beat them up or punch them in a way where their guard was down because they were so amazed at wherever it was they thought they were. And that's what happened with Eve in my vision. Now, once again, that very profound statement that was blessed to me. Naivete is not innocence. Naivete is not innocence. Innocence is keeping the commands of the Most High. Again, how can this be? Well, we know that anyone who is receiving a law, a statute, a command, a rule, a bylaw, an ordinance, or a judgment, if they keep those statutes and commands, they will be innocent because they would have not broken the statutes and commands to make them what? Guilty. Okay? So, naivete or this sense of ignorance pertaining to a thing is not the excuse to be not guilty. Okay? This country is famous for that. The so called United Snakes of America. This country is famous for that because there are many laws written on the books, way more than 613, which, if an individual doesn't know, a judge in the court of law will more than likely hold that individual accountable for breaking a law or ordinance that they didn't even know existed, whether it's in the form of a fine, whether it's in the form of community service, whether it's in the form of probation, whether it's in the form of jail time. Okay? A person who breaks a law in the United States of America will more than likely have to deal with the punishment of that, even if they were ignorant or naivete towards the law. Okay. And if that is simply a perspective in an earthly manner, how much more so could it be true for the Most High? But we know that everything we're dealing with is a shadow of things to come. Okay. So, what happened with Adam and Eve in the garden and the corruption of the temple, the original temple, was a shadow of what would happen in the physical temple that Solomon built when it was overtaken by the Grecians, and all sorts of nasty, abominable sacrifices and all sorts of nasty actions were taken after the temple was dedicated in truth, just like Adam and Eve's original temple was dedicated to the Most High before they ate of the knowledge of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Then we fast forward and we see sin enter into the world, and we see a rededication of sorts of the law, statutes, and commands as given to Moshe. Now there's a whole new set of law, statutes, and commands. And this time, there's a group or a nation of people who were given the law, statutes, and commands to be a light and example of keeping these law, statutes, and commands to the rest of the world. If the other people on earth were curious or invigorated by what they saw, there was an ability for them to cleave unto these people and also be under the law, statutes, and commands given to them by the Most High if they would so choose with their free will to be a part. Okay, they would not be turned away. The Most High tells us, do not turn away the stranger because you were once a stranger in the land as well. You were a stranger before too. Okay, so when we look at this and then we see that the temple had been overrun, the physical temple that Solomon built, and it had to be rededicated again. This is where Hanukkah comes in. This is where the Feast of Dedication is remembered. Okay. And then we see that sin is still in the world and that we need a final payment and propitiation for sin because the slaughtering of bulls, ox, and sheep, and goats, and rams, and pigeons, and doves was not going to suffice the amount of sin that man was still going to commit daily. So Yahshua HaMashiach had to stand in as the mediator and propitiator of the sin of man because he also, not only being a descendant of Judah and not only being of the line of the kings of Judah, he also was a descendant of Adam. There would not be an Abraham, Isaac, or Jacob if there was not an Adam. Okay? And so this is what we have to realize. And Yahshua not only came as a propitiation for Israel, for the level of salvation that Israel was going to need, okay, but also for those who cleaved on to Israel, okay, of the other nations. When we talk about Adam and Eve, let's get to it in Genesis chapter 3. And the Nahash, or the serpent, was more crafty than all the lives of the field which Yahuwah Elohim had made. And I look at that field, whoo, that's heavy. Eve was running through a huge field. Eve was running through, I said it was like a plane, right? I wanted you to see a picture of a plane, like a plane, an open area. But Eve was running through a field, okay? And the Nahash was more crafty than all the lives of the field which Yahuwah Elohim had made. And he said to the woman, is it true that Elohim has said, do not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said to the Nahash, we are to eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Elohim has said, do not eat of it, nor touch it, lest you die. And the Nahash said to the woman, you shall certainly not die. For Elohim knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be like Elohim, knowing good and evil. And the woman saw that the tree was good for food, that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree desirable to make one wise. And she took of its fruit and ate, and she also gave to her husband with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made loin coverings for themselves. And they heard the voice of Yahuwah Elohim walking about in the garden in the cool of the day. So they are walking around in the garden in the cool of the day when they hear the voice of Yahuwah Elohim. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of Yahuwah Elohim among the trees of the garden. And Yahuwah Elohim called unto Adam and said to him, where are you? And he said, I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked. So I hid myself. And he said, who made you know that you were naked? Have you eaten of the tree of which I commanded you that you should not eat? And the man said, the woman who you gave to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I ate. You see, men, we have to be accountable. That's why I always like to say, point one finger, three point back at you. Always remember this. The very first thing Adam said, the very first thing he said after I heard your voice in the garden and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid myself, is he blamed it on the woman, is the reason why he broke the commandment. The Most High not standing for that. Side note, when we break a commandment, a law, statute, or a judgment or ordinance of the Most High, it is not our prerogative and should not be our prerogative to blame every Tom, Dick, and Harry for our decision. We broke that in our own desire to break it. We broke that because that's what we wanted to do in that moment. Okay? We can't blame what we do in the moment on someone else. All right? This is very important because if we put up the blame on somebody else, how could we ever seek forgiveness for the thing that we actually did? Okay. If I eat a donut right now, you're not going to taste it. You could imagine the donut, but you're not going to taste it. If you eat some macaroni and cheese and you got a plate full of soul food, I'm not going to be able to taste what it is you're putting into your mouth to eat. I'll have to get my own plate so that I can enjoy the food that you're eating the same way that you're enjoying the food that you're eating. And that's how sin works. We're not able to put our sin in the transgression of a sin that we commit onto somebody else. Now, that was a catch 22 phrase because that's exactly what we hope to do, or that's exactly what we hope happen with Yahshua as a propitiation for sin. I often tell folks, hey, once you know who you are, and once you know that your purpose is to keep the law, statutes, and commands, we have to do our best not to continue to add on to that past sin that Yahshua took on to himself. We're dealing with past, present, and future. Well, in the present future of Yahshua, when he was here in the flesh, and while he was being hung from that tree, and while he went down into the underworld to fight, because that's what happened, he had to go down into the underworld to set the captives free. Okay, we read about that. Where do we read about that? I believe in the book of Ephesians, where he had to go into the underworld to set the captives free, lead captivity captive. Okay, lead captivity out of the bowels of the underworld, okay, the chains of death, back into a place of life. This is how many people will be raised incorruptible. We just read about the people being raised from the dead incorruptible. Well, that's due to the work of Yahshua. Okay. Now, when we have sin in our life that we commit, we have to learn how to take full accountability for that. And Adam didn't do that. So a second Adam had to come who is going to not only take accountability for the people who were around him in that day, for the sin of the people around him in that day, not only take accountability for the sin of those who came before him, but also take accountability for the sin of those who come after him, having never sinned himself. That's the gift of the Most High. For by grace are we saved through faith, and that not of ourselves. It is the gift of God, or the gift of Elohim. Okay. And the man said, the woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I ate. And Yahuwah Elohim said to the woman, what is this you have done? And the woman said, the Nahash deceived me, and I ate. And Yahuwah Elohim said to the Nahash, because you have done this, you are cursed more than all livestock and more than every beast of the field. On your belly you are to go and eat dust all the days of your life. Now you can read more about this in Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 17. And I put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall crush your head, and you shall crush his heel. Okay? He shall crush your head, and you shall crush his heel. Remember, I made a statement about, well, not all of us are children of Adam. Well, there is a seed of the Nahash on earth today. There is a seed of the serpent, a seed of the devil. This is why we read, you do like your father, the devil, who sinned from the very beginning, right? That reference is in pertinence to Cain. Okay? Cain. All right? Now, I did a study on this before, detailing how Cain and Abel are actually twins, but they're fraternal twins. Okay? They're fraternal twins. Abel is a son of Adam, but Cain was a son of the serpent. Okay? We'll get into that maybe at a later time. But let's continue the narrative of Bereshith, of Genesis chapter 3. When we read verse 15, we're also seeing the beginnings of the enmity, not only between Cain and Abel, but also between the devil and Yahshua. Okay, that seed that was mentioned in verse 15, the capital S seed is talking about Yahshua eventually. Okay, and we know this because Yahshua was originally to come through Abel. As Abel had children, that bloodline through Abel Adam's bloodline through Abel was going to trickle all the way down to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob, and then all the way down through Joseph to Yahshua HaMashiach. Okay? But the devil, through Cain, stopped that plan from taking place when he killed Abel. That is why we don't see a genealogy of Abel, because Abel was never able to have children. Instead, the genealogy of Adam picks back up through Seth. Have you ever noticed that, family? Have you ever noticed that Cain is not listed in the genealogy of Adam? Okay. This is how we know Cain is not Adam's son. We'll get to I think it's important to get to that because that's might be mind-blowing to some folks. Cain is not Adam's son. All through the scriptures, even with Esau and Jacob, and we know that Esau or Edom is the father of the Edomites, right? We know this. And even as much as the Most High talks about Esau, we still see his lineage. And we still see that Isaac is the father of Esau and Jacob. Okay? Even though the Most High says, Edom I hate. But how come we don't see Cain as a son of Adam? Regardless of what the man does or the child grows up to be, if he is a part of a particular bloodline in genealogy, he is mentioned in that genealogy, regardless of what he ends up becoming and ends up doing. Okay. With Cain, however, Cain is not mentioned as Adam's son. And this is very peculiar because it was with Cain's energy, it was with Cain's actions towards Abel that the very first person who Yahshua was supposed to come through was killed. That was the first attack on Yahshua HaMashiach, okay? In that one of his first potential forefathers was taken out the way and needed to be replaced by another so that the bloodline could continue. Let's get it. And I put enmity. This is verse 15 of Genesis chapter 3. And I put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall crush your head, and you shall crush his heel. To the woman, he said, I greatly increase your sorrow and your conception. Bring forth children in pain, and your desire is for your husband, and he does rule over you. Okay. And to the man, he said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife, insinuating that insinuating that Adam failed to listen to the voice of Yahweh and have eaten of the tree. Cain was the original hitman for the devil. Yes. And to the man, and Shabbat Shalom, Mama Carolyn. And to the man he said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife and have eaten of the tree of which I commanded you, saying, do not eat of it. Cursed is the ground because of you. In toil you are to eat of it all the days of your life, and the ground shall bring forth thorns and thistles for you, and you shall eat plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you are to eat bread until you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken, for dust you are, and to dust you return. And the man called his wife's name Halva, because she became the mother of all living. And Yahuwah Elohim made coats of skin for the man and his wife and dressed them. So even right here, we see that the fig leaves in the loincloths that they made for themselves were not sufficient for the bodies that they had been built to inhabit, okay, as spiritual beings. So Yahuwah Elohim made personalized coats of skin, okay, for the man and his wife and dressed them. Now, side note, we read, I believe, in the book of Jubilees, that that coat of skin that was made for Adam was passed down. It was a special coat. It was a special skin, and it was passed down through Seth all the way to Noah. Okay. And then when Noah, after the flood, spoke with his sons, Shem was the one who inherited the cloth. And then that cloth was passed, I believe, all the way down to Abraham. Okay. And what happened to the cloth then? I think even Jacob ended up receiving the cloth, but that cloth ended up being passed all the way down from Adam to Jacob. Okay. The cloth that Yahweh Elohim made. And Yahweh Elohim said, see, the man has become like one of us. Who is this us? Ha ha ha. Now you see what's going on. This is why Yahuwah is called Yahweh Elohim of hosts. Who is being hosted here? A host has in modern time, if you throw a party, you are the host of this party, meaning there are people who are joining the party. There are patrons, there are people, there are other beings who are in the party with you because you are a host. You cannot be a host if there were not people around you. So Yahuwah of hosts is the most high. Why is this being called the most high? Because there are others around it. Okay. This is why we are asked not to serve other gods. There are other gods. Each nation has a power over it. But the highest of those gods, the chief, is Yahweh, Elohim. Elohim is plural, meaning gods, rulers. And in the context, it could also mean messengers like angels. Okay. Let's get it. Let's get it. Welcome to the live stream, family. Let's get it. However, there is a most high, okay, the highest or chief of these, and that is Yahweh Elohim. Okay, if we were going to say in the singular, we would say Eloah, Eloah, or El. This is why the scripture is called Yahweh El, the El of my fathers. This is where Yasharal comes from, or Israel comes from. Okay, okay, we're talking about the power of El. All right, so let's continue. And Yahweh Elohim said, see, the man has become like one of us, to know good and evil. And now, lest he put out his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever. See, that's a secret that most people don't realize. Adam and Eve, before they ate, let's see, I just stepped in and this is a bit different. Shalom, family. Thank y'all for joining. Adam and Eve already had immortality as being made in the original archetype and image of the Most High, male and female. Okay? Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. But they didn't have their eyes open in full wisdom. Okay? Check this out. Okay, take what you can and watch the replay, Queen Sister. It's okay. When they ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they lost their immortality but gained wisdom. Their eyes were open. For whatever the reason the Most High had, both of those options were not on the table for the original man and woman. It was going to be one or the other. So the Most High blessed the original man and woman with immortality. Okay? And we, as the original man and woman, were supposed to keep and adhere to the original set of commands. Okay? When Adam and Eve, or Hawa, ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they inherited wisdom. They got wisdom. Their eyes were open, but they lost immortality. Okay? This is why Yahuwah Elohim says, oh, snap, they have become like one of us. Now, not only are they immortal, but they also have this knowledge of wisdom of good and evil. Okay? Yahweh said, nuh-uh. No, y'all not. So what he did was he removed them from the garden and took the tree of life from them. Because once they ate of the knowledge of good and evil, from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, their estate lowered from immortality into mortal. Now they got wisdom. But if they go ahead and eat from that tree of life, yes, equivalent exchange. Yes, Mama Carolyn. If they go and eat from that tree of good and life, now they will be returned to immortality with the wisdom of the Most High as well. We not having that. That's what Yahuwah the Most High is saying. Okay? So, and Yahuwah Elohim said, see, the man has become like one of us, to know good and evil. And now, lest he put out his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever. Dot, 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 dot. That's where we have to critically think about what's taking place. So Yahuwah Elohim sent him out of the garden of Eden, or Eden, to till the ground from which he was taken. And he drove the man out, and he placed cherubim at the east of the garden of Eden, and a flaming sword which turned every way to guard the way to the tree of life. The Most High tests us all, just as the Most High gives us with immortality and other gifts. They will be taken to prove unrighteous. Very correct. Well said. Thank you for sharing that statement. Now, I made a statement. About Cain not being the son of Adam, right? And I know that that might be a controversial statement. We have to realize that when Cain killed Abel, Cain took out the bloodline that was originally going to lead all the way down to Yahshua HaMashiach, who would be the propitiator for the sin that Adam initiated into mankind, into man. Okay? When Cain killed Abel, there's no longer a bloodline that could be established for Yahshua to eventually come through. So Adam was blessed with another son named Sheth or Seth. Okay? Let's get it. Let's get it. Excuse me. If you read Genesis chapter 4, you'll see the bloodline of Cain beginning at verse 17. Genesis chapter 4, verse 17. Okay? But you won't see who Cain's father is. You won't see who his father is. Okay? If you go to Genesis chapter 5, and thank you for everybody hitting that thumbs up. Thank you. If you go to Genesis chapter 5, you're going to see verse 1 begin with, this is the book of the genealogy of Adam. In the day that Elohim created man, he made him in the likeness of Elohim. Male and female, he created them. So we now know that the image and likeness of the Most High is male and female. Okay? So we know this. What we don't know is what designation is this male and female energy? What is this masculine and feminine energy? And this is why there's a lot of confusion today. Okay? This is why we see toxic masculinity. This is why we see the toxic patriarchy, as it's called. This is why we see toxic femininity. This is why we see the feminist movement, because all is so much confusion. Okay? And we don't see the balance as it should be. Okay? Check this out. Check this out. Chapter 5, verse 1 of Genesis. This is the book of the genealogy of Adam, and we're still focusing on the temple, y'all. The temple made without man's hands. Okay? This is the book of the genealogy of Adam. In the day that Elohim created man, he made him in the likeness of Elohim. Male and female, he created them, and he blessed them, and called their name Adam, meaning man, in the day they were created. And Adam lived 130 years and brought forth a son in his own likeness. I hope y'all are hearing this. And Adam lived 130 years and brought forth a son in his own likeness, after his image, and called his name Seth. But I thought Adam was the father of Cain and Abel. You see, the account of Genesis chapter 5, verse 1 is showing to us that Abel, after Abel was killed, Abel was not counted in the genealogy of Adam. But at this time, when the genealogy of Adam was written, Seth was alive as well as Cain. Cain was excommunicated altogether to the land of Nod, right? But how come Cain isn't listed in this genealogy of Adam after being born as one like Adam is in his own likeness after Adam's image? Because Cain was not born after Adam's likeness. Cain was not born after Adam's image. That's why he was the first murderer. Y'all get this? If Cain, being still alive at this day, was one of Adam's children, he would have been listed as one of Adam's children. But he's not. Instead, there's only one son listed, and that is Seth. So we'll read again. And Adam lived 130 years and brought forth a son in his own likeness, after his image, and called his name Seth. You're welcome, Sally Bear. Brought forth a son in his own likeness, after his image, and called his name Seth. And after he brought forth Seth, the days of Adam were 800 years, and he brought forth sons and daughters. Wait a second. How come Cain isn't listed in these bringing forth of sons and daughters? What's going on? What in the world is going on? So there's other sons and daughters? Yes, God's seed and Satan's seed. Khan. Very good. Very good. And ever since God's seed, the Elohim seed, was established, we see a threat to man. What is more proof of this? So you know your brother True Jew is not gassing you up. It's very simple. Go to the book of Matthew, chapter 1, the genealogy of Yahshua, and you will see something very peculiar. You can also go to the book of Luke, chapter 3. And this is how we were able to prove all this time ago that Yahshua, this is one way we were able to prove that Yahshua HaMashiach had the physical body created by man and woman. Okay? This is why he was born like his brothers, so that he can be tested and tempted like his brothers and pass all the testing and tempting and not be accused of being some supernatural angel guy in the flesh that's able to get over all of these trials and tribulations. Therefore, me as a normal, regular, mortal guy couldn't replicate what Yahshua did. Okay? Look, how do we know Seth was the one who was brought forth? Actually, you know what? The book of the genealogy of Yahshua in chapter 1 of Matthew, it begins with David. So let's go to Luke. Let's go to Luke chapter 3. My bad, y'all. Let's go to Luke chapter 3 real quick. Let's go to Luke chapter 3 real quick. To get this, we got to work backwards because I'm not going to read all the names. Okay? So Luke chapter 3, the genealogy of Yahshua, begins at verse 23. And when Yahshua himself began, he was about 30 years of age, being as reckoned by law, son of Joseph of Eli. Okay? Now, let's skip all the way down to verse 38. Of Enosh, of Sheth, of Adam, of Elohim. So we see that Adam is a son of the Most High. Okay? That's why we are sons and daughters of the Most High. This is why we are gods and goddesses. Oh, I know, controversial. But we forgot who we was. This is why we make all sorts of erroneous decisions. This is why we live unrighteously. This is why we constantly are finding ourselves sinning and transgressing, because we forgot our state. We forgot who we really are. Elohim created Adam. Adam is the son of Elohim. If you look at verse 38, you will see the very next son of Adam is not Abel, and it is not Cain. It is Seth or Seth, because it is through Seth that Yahshua comes through eventually. Okay, after uh after Methuselah, after Enoch, after Jared, after Noah, after Shem, after Arphaxad, after Selah, after Eber, after Peleg, after Reu, after Serug, after Nahor, after Terah, after Abraham, after Yitzhak, after Jacob, after Yahudah, after Peretz. I told you I wasn't going to read all the names, but y'all can look for yourself and prove what is being said through me to be true. Okay, so we know that since the very, very beginning, once the serpent seed was born in the form of Cain, it was going to be an onslaught. It was funk. Funk season is up. Goodness versus evil has now entered into the world. Ooh, thank you, Most High. That's another zinger. Once man ate from the knowledge of good and evil, goodness and evil entered into the world. And that's where a great battle began to ensue. Okay. When we talk about the temple again, though, it would appear to me that that knowledge, that tree, that fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, which led to Adam and Eve's corruption, was also the first piece or form of food that corrupted the temple as well. Okay. So, the same way that the Temple of Solomon was dedicated to the Most High is the same way that Adam and Eve's temple was dedicated to the Most High until it wasn't any longer. When we see all sorts of abominable sacrifices being slaughtered in the temple, in the courtyards of Solomon's temple, the temple that was measured in precise measurements as the dwelling place of the Most High in the midst of the children of Israel, we also see that that temple, again, I'm going to say this again, needed to be cleaned out and rededicated to the Most High. The exoteric, surface level realization is what was just said. The esoteric, subtle, underneath level is that we are the temple of the Most High. We, you and I, are the temple of the Most High. And what we have to do is, now that we realize all sorts of abominable things have been sacrificed on the altars of our conscience in our temples, now we have to rededicate ourselves. And again, this is why it's so important to look at the feast and holy days of the Most High, because through them we see not only a cultural perspective that we must adhere to if we are going to separate ourselves and set ourselves apart from the other nations on earth as having our own culture, but it's also important because these come with very impactful lessons. Okay, lessons that we can teach our children, lessons that we can use to remind ourselves of what's going on, so that if we fall short, if we for some reason forget, there will be others amongst our people who can remind us through the tenets of the feast days, through the tenets of those cultural um, observances, where we can then be reminded of what we need to do and then do it. Okay, and be reminded of our true estate. Um, that vision I had was very vivid, y'all. It was very vivid. Okay. And when I saw Eve, I'm gonna keep it 100 with you. I don't know exactly what Eve looked like, all right? But in my vision, she didn't look exactly like Vanessa Williams, but she looked like Vanessa Williams. And I was like, whoa, but it wasn't Vanessa Williams, okay? So it's not like, ah, brother, what you was watching before you went to bed. Nah. But she looked like Vanessa Williams, okay? And she was have any clothes on, but I didn't see any of her obvious nakedness. I just knew that she was covering herself and she was looking around, and this voice was very, very smooth talking and convincing. Okay. And it is the same spirit that a lot of our young men take onto ourselves when they are trying to take a young lady's virginity and chastity. Okay. And That same guilt that washes over a young lady after she has laid down with a young man for the first time does not seek to make her his wife. And they get up from that exchange, and she realized that she has essentially devalued herself and played herself, and that chastity isn't no longer being held by her, is the same way that Eve felt when she ate of the knowledge from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And from what I can ascertain from that vision, that feeling was passed down. Okay. That feeling was passed down through all of Eve's children, especially the young ladies. But I want to read something to our sisters, particularly, because I know today's day, many of you are under attack for decisions made in ignorance, okay, by men who want to appear to be holier than thou. I get this. And my whole stance is that, once again, when we point a finger at others, three are pointing back at us. So your bruh True Jew ain't about all them crazy games, and I'm not gonna sit up here and take the spotlight off of myself, okay? Because I could tell you my testimony. I share it whenever the Spirit leads me to, and I'm gonna tell you right now, when I was out here thugging and drugging and out here in these streets acting a fool, believe me, I could have gotten taken out, and I could have gotten taken out what I consider prematurely, even though everything happens in divine timing. I could have been taken out before the realization of my actions. And if I had been taken out before I was able to fully and completely repent and turn myself back to the Most High, oh man, I would be a goner. I'd be a goner, literally and figuratively. Okay. So I'm very grateful and thankful to the Most High that I've been given an opportunity to repent and seek the face of the Most High. And now I have to dedicate my life to the things of the Most High, to the word of the Most High. And that's why I walk the way I walk and talk the way I talk now. And it's about being an example, coming from the same place you came from, coming from the same turf you came from, coming from the same block you came from, coming from the same hood you came from, but letting you know, hey, this ain't about being no goody goody. It's about standing strong and realizing that you had grace and mercy over your life because you didn't have to. I had so many peers that then got took out the way. So many peers that got took out the way. This is my 15th year in the walk. I was 19 years old when I was made aware of who I was. And I'm don't mind me looking down, family. I'm looking for the scriptures that I want to bring out. Um, we're gonna go to First Timothy chapter 2, verses 13 through 15. But I was walking a certain way. And on my 15th year, this past year, August 11th is when my life changed, right? One of my dear partners back at home in the Bay, because I relocated from the Bay this year to the country. My brother got killed 2 something in the morning, right there in our hood, right there a block up from my home, my home in Vallejo. Got smoked, got smoked. Okay, and he not the only one. But the reason I mention him is because he was one of the first people back in 2007 when my whole life changed. He was one of the first people that I tapped in with. One of the first people I did my best to share the truth with. Okay. So I know it ain't no game. I know it ain't nothing to be playing with. Okay. So that's why I got to go extra hard. And when the Most High tells us to wake up out of our slumber, it's time to redeem the time. Ephesians chapter 5, right? We have to redeem the time. That means you was slack at first, but now you got to work overtime to not only to make up time, but to get back in line and catch up in the marathon. Imagine starting a marathon and then slacking off for an hour of it, but you want to win. That means you got to run extra fast. You got to do something now to catch up. So that's what we doing. When we get brought back into the truth and we get brought back into the realization of our inconsistency in the eyes of the Most High, now we have to do what we can do to pick back up. But for the sisters, though, for the sisters, the scriptures give us a promise for y'all that I really love. I really love this, and I appreciate that it's here because if you would but listen, and I don't mean being forced, I mean listen, listen and you hear me. With your free will, right? We talking about free will choices. We not talking about, oh, you only doing this because you want to get in heaven. You only doing this to stay out of hell. Nah, if you ask me, the Most High don't want you to do it because of any reward. The Most High wants you to do it, meaning adhere to the law, statutes, and commands, because you know that's what you was originally called to do, and you fell off before. Okay, it's about making up. I'm not doing this so that because I have a guilt conscience about going to hell or wanting to see heaven. I'm doing this in spite of. Just like what happened with Moses. Moses was chosen to lead the children of Israel all through the wilderness. Moses was chosen to see the face of the Most High. Moses was chosen to carry the tablets that was written with the finger of the Most High back down to the children of Israel. But Moses did not get to see the promised land. Moses did what he did out of obedience. And yes, I pray daily that the Most High extend that form of mercy and grace to me, that I will be able to inherit the kingdom one day. I hope. But even if I don't get to inherit the kingdom, because I know I was a sinner living in sin, because I know I transgressed the law, statutes, and commands of the Most High, I'm just doing what has been placed on my heart now to try to make up for something, to help somebody else. Even if I never see it, hopefully something that is said through me will spark the brain of somebody who do get to see it. Okay? So I hope that you find yourself in the same predicament. It ain't about heaven. It ain't about getting into the new kingdom. That's a reward. Yes, that's beautiful. That's awesome. But is that your driving force? Is that what drives you? Or does the love of the Most High drive you? And the love of the Most High is what? It's not that romanticism. It's not the ooh la la. It's not the emotions. It's not the lovey dovey Chris Brown T-Pain song. No, it's the keeping of the laws, statutes, commands, ordinances, and judgments of the Most High. And that's how we know we love the Most High. And that's how we know that we love the children of the Most High. Okay? We don't have to confuse it. Okay, but oftentimes it's confused because once again, yes, we have been placed into these places of our captivity. Yes, Gentiles have been given the opportunity to rule over us, but not because the Most High initially wanted that to happen. Remember, as children of Israel, the blood descendants of Yasharal, we were given the opportunity to be the priest and the holy nation before the world as lights to the world. Okay, yes, love is law, law is love. I like that. Might have to make a t-shirt out of that, Queen Sister. Love is the law is the love. I like that. That's dope. All praises to the Most High. That's tight. So when we think about this, hold on, let me write that down. And we could discuss particulars later on. get you some commissions going on. Law is love, love is law. That's tight. All right. We about sharing. We about sharing in the kingdom. We about sharing. Everybody got everybody got a place, right? All right, for sure. So when we talk about what's going on, let's put that back into perspective. Just as people, I like to say this briefly because there's so much anger and bitterness amongst our people, especially once we wake up toward other nations. And it shouldn't be like that. In my life, anger and bitterness, if it was going to be that, it should be toward me because I'm the one who used my gifts that was given to me by the Most High for the devil. How dare I? How dare I? How dare I take all of these blessed and divine gifts I've been given and turn my back on the Most High, but use them to build up Satan's kingdom? How dare I? How dare I? So once I was made to realize that, okay, once I was made to realize the error of my ways, I had to redeem the time. I had to start using them gifts and them talents. I said, I stopped using the gifts and talents for a minute because I don't know how to use these for the Most High. I've been using them so long for the devil. How do I use this for the Most High? Okay. How do I fish for my brothers and sisters using these gifts that I've been given for the Most High's glory and sake? Oh, it took a minute, y'all. It took a minute. But that's why we have to use our own testimony. And the more we use our own testimonies to share amongst each other, the more we'll realize, dang, bruh, I'm the reason that I fell in sin. If you the reason you fell in sin, and we all belong to the same people, and now we all can analyze ourselves and we see how sinful we is and how we transgress something that was precious in the form of law, statutes, commands that was given to us. That's why naivete cannot be innocence, but keeping the law, statutes, and commands could be innocent. Because when you break them, what? We are judged and we're guilty of breaking the law. Okay? So now I'm like, ooh, we had to be punished. I'm not finna blame my pappy for whooping my butt if I know I did something wrong that he asked me not to do, or requested I don't do. If he said, Jews, don't go out there past 8 o'clock tonight, you come in when the street light come on. Don't let me catch you around the corner out there tapping and gangbang with your homies back there. If he roll around the corner and he see me back there doing something I ain't supposed to be doing, and he snatch me up, take me inside, and whoop me with a belt, I have to get mad at myself. Why? I'm not going to get mad at my dad, because if I do, I would not have learned a lesson. And then I'm going to work double time in disobeying him in the future. Ugh, why daddy whooped me like that? You know what? Forget you, dad. That's what we say. People, forget you, dad. I'm running away, dad. Forget you, mom. I'm out of here, lady. What happens? The child doesn't take the punishment right and then goes and does more until they realize the error of their ways, most high willing, and come back as prodigal sons or prodigal daughters, right? Women, sisters, the moment you've been waiting for. How do you receive forgiveness as a pattern of Eve? What does that mean? Well, not only was Eve going to receive a punishment of having to bring forth child in pain, but all of Eve's descendants who were women, girls, would grow into women who would also have to have pain and suffer during the childbirth period. Okay? The contractions, the hip widening, the baby dropping in the womb, having to push that child in labor, having to give birth to the child, having to provide nourishment through the breast for the child. All of these things would be an uncomfortable experience for a woman, especially during her first labor. I've always heard the first labor is the most hardest. Okay. The one who opens the matrix, that child that opens the matrix. Oh, you know where I'm going. Yes, purified through childbirth. So let's look at this. Verse 13 of 1 Timothy chapter 2. Because Adam was formed first, then Hawa. And Adam was not deceived, but the woman, having been deceived, fell into transgression. Now, that's very powerful before we go on. This is proof that the law, statutes, and commands were given to the men. Okay? What do you mean, brother? The law, statutes, and commands were given to men always. And men were always supposed to cover their women and their children with the knowledge given to them through the law, statutes, and commands. And whenever the man went off and decided that he was not going to adhere to the law, statutes, and commands, that gave the woman a chance to leave from under his covering and then be deceived and do whatever it was she was going to do. And that is how our nation eventually failed. The men begin to go after the Gentiles' ways and then bring and adopt those ways back into the kingdom. And the women and children who were supposed to be covered by the men, remember the spiritual hierarchy, Most High, Yahshua, man, wife, child. Once the man went away from Yahshua in the word, do I need to say any more? Now check this out. What's more proof of that? And Adam was not deceived, but the woman, having been deceived, fell into transgression. A lot of men like to use this and say, see, it's because of the woman. It's because of the woman. See, she was deceived. It's because of the woman. That's what most men will say that. It's because of the woman. It's because of the woman. See. Doing the same thing Adam did in the garden. No, it wasn't me. It's because that woman, that lady you made for me, she the one who did it. And I just, I had, but it was the woman. Not me. Don't blame me. Blame her. Hmm. This is proof about what we finna say. And Adam was not deceived, but the woman, having been deceived, fell into transgression. She was deceived and fell into transgression, but guess what? Adam knew the law. Adam knew the command, and Adam purposefully ate of the tree. See the difference? The woman was deceived. She was beguiled, but Adam was not beguiled. Adam was not deceived. In his free will, he chose to eat of that tree. And Adam did not have to eat of it. Adam could have looked at his woman and he could have said, "Hey, baby, why you do that? You know you wasn't supposed to do that. Now I got to go to the Father on your behalf and I got to seek some sort of forgiveness and hope that he don't destroy you with something. Hope he don't punish you with something." But did Adam do that as the head of his woman? No, he didn't do that. He blamed her. And then he ate. He ate and then blamed her. But he wasn't deceived. He wasn't deceived. The woman was. Adam purposefully did that. Okay? So check this out. And Adam was not deceived, but the woman, having been deceived, fell into transgression. But here's the but, verse 15. But she shall be saved. Sisters, listen to this. This is pertaining to you. But she shall be saved in childbearing, if they continue in belief and love and set apartness with sensibleness. So now the woman has the opportunity. Yes, they both sinned, but Adam purposefully sinned by not being deceived. Eve, however, was deceived. Okay? And she was supposed to have her covering, her man. Okay? If her man covered her the right way, she would not have been beguiled and had nobody whispering sweet nothings in her ear without the consultation of her husband. Adam was the one who knew better, and he didn't do better. Adam was not beguiled. Eve didn't beguile Adam and whisper sweet nothings in his ear and throw him off. Adam purposefully ate. He knew what he was doing. Okay? Adam knew what he was doing. Eve really didn't know, even though she knew the command. Eve didn't know to what extent because she wasn't being covered. That's why she was beguiled and deceived. Adam was not beguiled or deceived. Adam knew what he was doing. And through both of their actions, this temple fell into corruption. The same way Solomon's temple in the hands of the Grecians fell into corruption. And just like when a temple falls into corruption, there must be a propitiation for the reason why it fell into corruption. That physical temple made with man's hands that Yahuwah the Most High dwelt in the midst of the children of Israel is a shadow or a physical archetype of this temple, which must have the spirit of Yahuwah Elohim dwelling within it. Okay? And the same way that temple fell into corruption, we seek through Yahshua HaMashiach to be restored to the temple of incorruption. This is why we talk about immortality. So Adam was not naive? Yes, Adam was not naive. Okay? Adam purposefully broke the law. Adam was not naive. He knew what was up. But do you see why there's an attack on womanhood right now, especially in the form of giving childbirth? You see why the propaganda, oh, young ladies, don't have children. Don't do this. You don't want to have children. No, no, no. Because as descendants of the original woman who have inherited that form of punishment through childbirth, it is through childbirth that you will also be saved. If you continue in the belief and love. What is the belief? The belief is the word and the propitiation set forth through Yahshua HaMashiach. What is the love? The love is keeping the law, statutes, and commands as under your husband. This is why when we read 1 Timothy chapter 2, we see, likewise, we have a list of commandments given to the woman by the Most High. So I resolve that the men pray everywhere, lifting up hands that they are set apart without wrath and disputing. Likewise, that the women dress themselves becomingly with decency and sensibleness, not with braided hair or gold or pearls or costly garments, but with good works, So this doesn't mean you can't braid your hair, sisters. That's not what that means. It means don't think because you're putting on costly garments, keeping your hair all good and tidy, and got the braids, the box braids, and the this and the swoops and the oops and all of those sorts of things. That's what's going to keep you in a good sight of the Most High. It's not about the external. That's the point. Okay, but with good works, which is becoming for women undertaking worship of Elohim. Okay, okay, it is your good works in the sight of the Most High. Okay, now what are some of those good works? Keeping the law, statutes, and commands. The woman is asked to learn in silence, not being a mute and silent forever, but learning as that role under the hierarchy, the spiritual hierarchy, Most High, Yahshua, man, husband, wife, children. Okay? Because when the woman learns in silence, she is then the carrier of the child. And what she hears, the child hears. And when the child is birthed, that child will have more of a propensity to want to also live after the tenets of the Most High. But you know why else childbirth is so important? Does anyone know why childbirth is so important? Because these are the vessels that the Most High dwells within. This living body is what the Most High dwells in. So when a woman aborts the body, the vessel, the vehicle that we need in order to utilize the experience in the three-dimensional realm, that is one vessel or one vehicle that the Most High will not be able to dwell in. And it's that serious. It's that important. It really is. So you also see women being targeted to not have children. And if a woman doesn't have a child, that's one less person that will be a vessel for the Most High to dwell within as the living temple. Okay? So that's why a woman shall be saved in childbearing. But that childbearing has to come with belief and love and then set apartness. What is set apartness? What is set apartness? It's that same set apartness that we see with Kodesh. Okay? Ruach HaKodesh. That's not any old spirit. That is the feminine aspect or the feminine spirit of the Most High called the Ruach HaKodesh that Christianity calls the Holy Spirit. Okay? It is the Ruach HaKodesh that is set apart. And the scriptures ask the women to be set apart. Now, in a carnal, physical way, that means that if you see society going one way and that way is going against the Most High, that way is uplifting and building you up falsely. And maybe that's not even uplifting if you think about the connotation of the word. But that way is causing you to go in antithesis or opposite of the way that the Most High has asked of you through the word. Then you got to look at that, sister. You have to really take account of that and say, okay, forget about peer pressure for a minute. Forget about what little Lily and all them is talking about for a minute. Even if mama and them said to do this to catch you a man, or to do this to be cool, or to do this to be swagged out, or whatever it is, I have to listen to what the Most High is saying. And if the Most High says be set apart, meaning not be like the rest of the world, then I need to do that. That's a decision you're going to have to make, though, just like I have to make it. Okay? It's a decision that we have to make. But you do these things with sensibleness. With sensibleness. Sensibleness, the root word of sensibleness is what? Sense. I love it. The root word of sensibleness is sense. What is sensibleness, y'all? The quality of showing good sense or practical judgment. Okay? A type of practicality concerned with actual use rather than theoretical possibilities. Reasoness. Okay? Reasoness. So that means reasonableness. My bad, y'all. Reasonableness. So sensibleness is the showing the proper, excuse me, the property of being sensible, good sense, common sense. So in all of those things, practical judgment, okay? So in all of those things, What we have to remember, sisters, is that you're going to be tempted into beguilement just like our mother Eve was. But unlike Eve, even in today's time, if you had been listening to the word like the woman was requested to do, if you remember the stories of the past, just like you were requested to do, learning, okay, look, learning in silence in all subjection, meaning that you would have heard the examples that came before you. Now you can make an honest decision whenever temptation is in front of you. This is why it's so important to teach these stories to our children and particularly our daughters. We should also teach them to our sons from the standpoint of recognizing a woman or a young woman's chastity and the value of her virginity so that a man will not beguile a woman into laying down with him knowing that he does not want to remain with her, removing that form of her value from the man who was wanting to lay with her for the sake of being her husband. Okay? We have to do better as parents. Okay? But maybe that's a whole nother discussion in the sense of the discussion itself. Nonetheless, women, you have an opportunity to be right and made right in the eyes of the Most High. Do not let anyone attack you for being a woman as a descendant of the feminine aspect given through Eve to the rest of the world. Yes, Eve was deceived. She did what she did. She then presented that action to her husband. Adam had the choice to either get with it or not. He chose to get with it. And then the whole world fell into sin. And we then needed a propitiation for the sin to come through the line of the one who sinned, Adam, and that came in the form of the second Adam, aka Yahshua HaMashiach. Okay? Listen, y'all, this is so beautiful to get when you got it. Okay? It's so beautiful to get when you got it. And one of the things about getting something, one of the things about getting something is that sometimes we have to learn over. Okay? Sometimes we have to learn things again. Okay. Sometimes we have to learn things again. And let me get that real quick because a lot of us are children of Christianity, right? A lot of us are children of Christianity. I got a message. Give me 1 second. Sometimes we have to learn things again, and it's okay to learn things again. You just have to make sure that you know we learning things in a way where, hey, we take heed to what it is we learning. Hold on, y'all. Let me get this real quick. Y'all give me 1 moment. What do I want? I want uh I'll give me 1 moment. Yeah, that's right. Excuse me, y'all. I want Hebrews. I want Hebrews chapter 5. Okay? Hebrews chapter 5. And we're gonna talk about Yeshua real quick. All right. I know we are able to repent regarding giving our chastity. If that's the case, are we able to do abstinence until marriage to try to rectify? That's a great question. That's a great ooh. I love that question, Queen Sister. I love that question. And I'm gonna have to say yes. I'm gonna have to say yes. Even if the virginity was taken, and let's say it was taken through ignorance, let's say it was taken through beguilement, right? Like most of it is. We just read in Timothy chapter 2. Yes, that's the only option. Yes. You see, that's what that abstinence is. Abstinence is the set apartness. Okay, but if a woman doesn't bear labor pains for whatever reason, are you saying she can't receive salvation? All right, I'll answer that next. That's a great question too. And she should be saved childbearing if they continue in belief. So obviously, right there, In order to have a child, there's no abstinence, right? There's no abstinence in having a child. There's an act of laying down with a man to produce a child. So abstinence is out the window at that point, right? But if you continue in belief and love, is that love, keeping the law, statutes, and commands, right? Now, side note, we wasn't taught this, but when a man lays with a woman, especially a man who takes a woman's virginity, that woman is to be his wife and she is to be his husband, according to the law, statutes, and commands, okay, of Torah, okay? But in modern times, that's oftentimes not the case, all right? So to answer your question, are we able to do abstinence until marriage to try to rectify? Yes. And that abstinence would be considered being set apart. Okay. Not getting out there and getting ratchet and turning up and collecting bodies and all of that sort of thing. Okay. But recognizing the mistake, repenting. Because what does repent mean? Repent means to abstain from and turn away from. Okay. Seeking forgiveness, I'm sorry, is an apology. But repentance is apologizing and turning away and leaving what it is alone. Okay. So when you repent, as you said, once you repent, then you abstain yourself. And that means turning away and setting yourself apart until you are married, until you have a husband who is dedicating his covering to you. Okay. So that was a great question. Excuse me, my cover keeps coming over my eyes. Now, great message, I agree. Motherhood is beautiful. Khan, yes, it is. But if a woman doesn't bear labor pains for whatever reason, are you saying she can't receive salvation? No, ma'am. I'm not saying that at all. That's not what I'm saying. Because every woman's birth is different. Some women might receive epidural. Okay, some women, I think that's might maybe where you're going. Some women might receive an epidural because the pains are so intensified, or for medical reasons beyond just her going through the pain of childbirth. In that particular situation, that woman will have to deal with her uterus walls being cut open, right? Her stomach has to be, or her abdomen will be cut open, not her stomach, excuse me, but her abdomen will be cut open and the uterus, right? And so that's a form of pain in itself. She'll have to be stitched up and she'll have a scar on her belly for life. And I think, if I'm correct, when a woman goes through cesarean section, she's not able to or have a child naturally anymore. Okay. So either way it goes, a woman who gets pregnant and has children is going to feel some sort of labor pain. Now, labor pain, in the sense also of this context, bearing labor pain has everything to do with contractions, Braxton Hicks. Okay. So before the child comes, before it's even before a medical practitioner would even suggest a cesarean section, the woman is already going to feel child birthing pains. You know, she's already going to feel that before the baby even drops in her womb. It's already she's going to feel that. So, in that respect, she will have inherited what Eve felt as well. So, either way it goes, through that birth, through that gestation of the child, excuse me, the woman is going to feel some pain. Okay. So I am not saying that she can't receive salvation if she doesn't feel birthing pain. It's just, to my knowledge, a woman is always going to feel birthing pain, but the actual pain of birthing a woman through the vaginal canal might not be felt by some women if they opt for epidural, if they opt for cesarean section, it'll be felt in a different way. Okay. But it's gonna be thick. And I think the point of that is women have the child, push that baby out, get that baby into this world. I think that's the overall point, because that baby, that vessel, is another opportunity for the Most High to experience in this creation, and its creation. Okay, so I hope that answered the question. Y'all got questions today. That's what's up. All praises, and the Most High blessing me with some answers. So that's what's up. But I wanted to touch on one thing because, like I was saying, we learned so much in Christianity that was erroneous to what the scriptures actually tell us, right? So, yes, you will always feel pain at some part of the labor and delivery pain. Oh, see, so it's labor pain and then it's delivery pain. Another is after birth pains. Woo! So, sisters, y'all got three pains. I didn't say T pains. I said three pains. And if T-Pain stand for three, then that brother was on it. Okay, if the T-Pain stand for three pains, woo wee, he was on it. But now y'all T-Pains, three pains. Okay, labor pain, delivery pain, and then birth pains. Them is three pains. So don't feel labor pains, which I'm pretty sure she's gonna feel labor pains. She might not feel delivery pains if it's an epidural involved, but if it is not an epidural involved, she definitely gonna feel some pain there. But no matter what, whether it's C-section or natural birth, after that baby's born, she gonna feel birth pains. Excuse me, afterbirth pains. Thank you, Queen Sister, waking goddess for that. So she's gonna feel afterbirth pains too. Remember, I'm a man. I ain't never had no child, but I was 10 pounds. I was 10 pounds. I know that. I was 10 pounds when I was born, so I was a big one. You feel? So I was like, oh, my mom has it. Woo wee. I was 10 pounds. So she definitely felt some things. Okay. My mama definitely felt some things. So the point is, there's going to be parts of that pregnancy where you feel pain. So just get ready. Just accept the fact that you will feel pain. And back to the question, if she doesn't feel pain, are you saying she can't receive salvation? Now, let me answer that part. If she doesn't feel pain, are you saying she can't receive salvation? Did I answer the question through the in the lines, what I was feeling from the question? Because technically, if she don't feel pain, then let's say she had a surrogate. Let's say this lady had a surrogate, right? Well, then I'm going to have to say no. Why? She's not feeling the pain herself, right? She's not set apart because we don't really have surrogates. Like so in modern time, a surrogate today would be woman A taking her eggs and placing that egg with sperm that she chooses to match with that egg into woman B. And woman B is not utilizing her eggs, but there's been an implant of egg and sperm into woman B who has this child, right? If we talk about surrogate motherhood in biblical time, let's go back to Sarai and Hagar with Abraham. Abraham desperately wanted a child, and Sarai definitely wanted to give a child to Abraham. But when she couldn't produce a child because at that moment her womb was barren, she took her handmaiden Hagar through surrogacy of mind, gave Hagar's womb to Abraham's seed so that the child Ishmael would be born so Abraham could have a son. But even then, Sarai did not take Ishmael as her own son, like a modern day surrogate woman would. Okay, so let's say this was modern times and Sarah and Hagar were modern day women. Today's day, Sarah would take some egg that she had and she would have it placed into Hagar just because Sarah didn't want to go through birthing pains. And Hagar would be the one to go through. But that baby, because the egg was placed from Sarah into Hagar, that child would technically still belong to Sarah because it would be her mitochondrial DNA. Ooh, is that a form of wickedness? It don't sound set apart to me. Set apart to me sounds like what Sarah did. Praying to the Most High vehemently in hopes that one day her womb would be open, which it eventually was. Okay? So, to answer your question without reading in between the lines, if a woman doesn't bear labor pains for whatever reason, are you saying she can't receive salvation? That's murky because the whatever reason could be, is that same as Rachel with Bilhah, her maid? Bilhah, her maid? Uh, Rachel, the mother of Isaac and Jacob. Um, yeah, yeah, but see, even then, Rachel, being just like Sarah, had children eventually. She had a child eventually, and then Rachel had the twins. Okay, Rachel had the twins, Esau and Jacob. So that's a tough one. I think that's one of those where we have to be very specific on exactly what's taking place with the woman. Okay, and then we have to really look at it from that perspective. But I think I covered both aspects of it. Epidural numbness, but still giving birth, like out of the woman who was carrying the child versus a woman whose egg is put into another woman for that woman to experience the birthing pain. And I don't think the woman who does that by putting her egg in another woman would be considered set apart, because there's nowhere in the scriptures that tell us to take our sperm and egg and put it into another woman who had no parts of the laying down process. Okay. And I know that would be kind of tough for modern day folks to really accept in a way because technology, right? But I think that's the correct answer because we have to look at how we were created. I wasn't created in a test tube. My daddy and my mama laid down to procreate this body that I'm in, right? So had I been created in a lab or something, whew, that would be rough. You see? So I have to answer it scripturally. And all of the examples given in scripture is always about either a man laying down with a woman to produce that child immediately, or a woman barren saying, "Hey, husband, I still want you to have a child, even if I'm not physically able to do so right now, with the understanding that that child still doesn't come through me. So he or she is not my son or daughter, but I love you so much, husband, and I want you to see your child that here's another woman that you can have a child by until the Most High opens up my womb." Okay, so that's what we do see. All right, so it's a tough question, but I think it's answerable according to scripture. Okay. So I hope I answered that. But back to the point, we've been raised in Christianity so long that we have to be taught over. Okay. We have to relearn. Many of us should have been teachers of the word by now. Of course, the scriptures say women learn in silence and don't be teachers over the man. But the scriptures also tell us for the women learn in silence so that you could teach other women and your children. Okay. So women should be having women's groups. Women should be, instead of talking about what the Kardashians is doing and what happened on Love and Hip Hop and what Cardi B and Meg the Stallion and them got going on, our women should be sitting together and talking about ways to honor the Most High, ways to honor their husbands, ways to be good women within the household, ways to maintain their chastity, ways to maintain their virtuosity. Okay. And women can teach other women and children. The elder women are supposed to be teaching the younger women, and the younger women are supposed to be teaching the girls and the children. Okay. So we should have all been teachers by now in some form of capacity, but we're not. Why aren't we? Let's go real quick. Verse 5 of Hebrews chapter 5. So also Hamashiach did not extol himself to become high priest, but it was he who said to him, "You are my son. Today I have brought you forth." As he also says in another place, "You are a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek." Now, "You are my son. Today I've brought you forth." You can go to Psalm chapter 2, verse 7. For all of those who say that Yahshua is not mentioned of in the Old Testament, Yahshua is the word, the whole word, new and old. And it is spoken of Yahshua constantly and consistently all throughout the Torah, the Tanakh. I'm hoping that whoever watches this later on, if they stumble upon this and they don't believe in Yahshua, whoo, Mercy on your soul, brother and sister, okay? But the whole volume of the book is speaking of Yahshua. You are my son. Today I have brought you forth. Psalm chapter 2. Yes, the breath of life. 2 verse 7. As he also says in another place, you are a priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek, who in the days of his flesh, when he had offered up prayers and petitions with strong crying and tears to him who was able to save him from death, and was heard because of his reverent fear. Though being a son, he learned obedience by what he suffered. See, everything that we're going through right now, y'all, the suffering of the woman, the suffering of man having to toil in the ground, the suffering of the children of Israel being scattered to the four corners of the world, being chastised through enslavement, literal enslavement, shadow slavery, being pushed to the bottom of society, always buying, never selling, always on loan but never lending. Okay, all of these things are sufferings. Why? Because we fell into disobedience. And these sufferings are not supposed to make us bitter or contentious, but they're supposed to what? They're supposed to heal us. Okay, and we're supposed to learn obedience through what we suffer. And having been perfected, verse 9 of Hebrews 5, and having been perfected, he became the causer of everlasting deliverance to all those obeying him through the word. For Yahshua HaMashiach is the word made flesh. And Yahshua HaMashiach is the mediator between sinful men, women, and children and the Most High. Is it simple? Is this being simplified for y'all? Having been designated by Elohim a high priest according to the order of Melchizedek. So Yahshua is our high priest and king. That is why he is the King of Kings. He is the high priest and the king. Okay? Concerning whom we have much to say and hard to explain, since you have become dull of hearing. You see, we have to relearn these things. Okay? A lot of what we read in the so-called New Testament, especially in the epistles of Paul, those letters of Paul, they're very, very difficult to understand and read if you are not proficient in the so-called Old Testament or the Old Covenant or Torah Tanakh, the scriptures. Okay? The majority of the so-called New Testament are filled with quotes and phrases and statements that were made in the Old Covenant, okay, in the Torah, in the Tanakh. If you do not know those, there's no way you'll be able to decipher the letters of Paul and make sense of them. Okay. And so this is what Hebrews is speaking and pertaining to in verse 11, concerning whom we have much to say and hard to explain, since you have become dull of hearing. When we don't listen to the word fully, we make up what we want to. We hear any old thing, and then we listen to those who would seek to control us by tickling our ear in a manner that we want to hear instead of what needs to be said. Okay. This is why we know the truth will set us free, but a lie will keep us in bondage. Okay. For indeed, although by this time you ought to be teachers. See, by this time, I don't know how old many of y'all are, but by this time, you're supposed to be teachers in some form or fashion. Sisters, you should be teaching this truth to other sisters who give you window of opportunity to. Brothers, especially men of Israel, we, we were called to be priests. You should be teaching. This is your main job. You should be crying aloud, especially in this last day of the last days. You should be lifting your voice like a trumpet, crying aloud, and doing your absolute best to help. Oh, correction is unstable. Hold on. I'll take this moment to take a drink. Yeah, correction is unstable. Excuse me, y'all. I'm telling y'all, I was like the first person dealing with these Vita Cocos, the coconut water. Now everybody on them, but they good though. They really good. So look, we should have been teachers by now. Hello, hello. Okay. For indeed, although by this time you ought to be teachers, you need someone to teach you again the first elements of the words of Elohim. So we have to go back to square one. We have to relearn what we should have already learned, but that's part of redeeming the time once we've been brought back into the truth. So don't be down on yourself, don't be guilt ridden, but take this opportunity to reacclimate yourself to the truth, right? And you have become such as need milk and not solid food. So just as we was talking about babies earlier, what does a baby need when it's born? A baby's not able to chew meat. A baby is not able to chew hamburgers, and a baby's not able to chew sweet potatoes. Nothing. A baby has to drink its mother's milk, right? And so, just like a baby who needs milk, many of us are babies again, not physically speaking, but up here consciously. We're babies in the mind. We're babies in our understanding. So we need the milk. We need the easier. Excuse me, y'all. That's the smoke alarm going off. We need the milk of the word, which means we need to start over very slowly. Okay. For everyone partaking of milk is inexperienced in the word of righteousness, for he is a babe. See, inexperience means we need to start anew. We need to be taught over. We need to relearn. And that's okay, as long as you stay steadfast in the truth. But solid food is for the mature, whose senses have been trained by practice to discern both good and evil. There's that theme again, good and evil. And there we see sensibility again. We need to be sensible again, right? So that means what? What does sensibility mean again? What does that mean? That means showing good sense or practical judgment, right? So we need to have good judgment. And that's why we have to be able to discern both good and evil. Now it's up to us to discern good and evil. Why? I find this interesting because we are the children of Adam and Eve who ate from the knowledge of the tree or ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So now that we have that gift, we wasn't utterly destroyed, but we was put into corruption. But now we have the knowledge of good and evil. Now we have to be able to discern from it. You see how that works? While we're in these temples looking for incorruption or immortality. So look, y'all, that was a power pack lesson, if you ask me. I had a joy answering y'all's questions and being able to bring forth this word this evening or this Shabbat. Some folks, if you're on the West Coast, it's still daytime today for y'all. So the Shabbat is still up and running. It's still going strong. Those of us in the Midwest and the East Coast, as well as in the UK or in West Africa, or shoot, maybe even in China, way out there. You might be in the Navy and you might be in the military observing Shabbat to the best of your abilities. Wherever you are, I still wish you a Shabbat Shalom, a Shabbat Shalom. And I hope that your day of rest was peaceful, truly, that it was beautiful, edifying. I said I wanted to be brief. And I know this lesson. Thank you. Thank you. All praises to the Most High. All praises to the Most High. I hope that the lesson, even though it wasn't as brief as I thought it might be, wasn't a waste of breath. Okay, and that everything was spoken on. I know there was a moment there where my microphone had went out, so I felt like I had to rehash certain parts of my vision that I had yesterday rising, in regards to why this lesson was so important to bring out today. The synopsis of it all: we are the temple of the living Elohim. We are the temple. We are the temple made without man's hands. We are the temple that the Most High seeks to dwell in. And when we do things that go against the Most High has to leave from the temple. The Most High has to remove his presence from the temple. Okay, so it's important that as we continue to walk in this walk, we do everything that we can to set ourselves apart. Okay. Don't be afraid to set yourself apart, but know that it's going to be lonely sometime. Know that there'll be individuals who call you crazy. There'll be individuals who ask you why you doing what you're doing. There'll be individuals that try to talk you off, try to talk you off of your journey, just and beguile you, just like the serpent did by telling you, no, the law, statutes, and commands, you don't have to adhere to them. No, you don't have to do this. You don't have to do that. You could eat whatever you want to. As long as you pray it up, you could do whatever you want to, as long as you ask for forgiveness. It was all nailed to the cross. Well, your brother True Jew is here to tell you a lot of those statements are erroneous and false and seek to remove you from your inheritance. Don't get tricked out of your position. Stand strong. Fight the good fight. The good fight is representing for the Most High here on earth and being a light to the world like you were called to be. Look, it's with y'all as the host of the Voice of Zion, the only way I know how. Raw, real, and uncut. Thank y'all for tapping in with me. Blessings of peace and shalom, shalom, and Shabbat to you all. Shabbat shalom to the 12 tribes, the four corners, and all of the Gentile nations who seek to cleave unto us in this last day. Blessings to you all. Truly, truly, truly may be awakened. May we be awakened and edified in the truth. It's your brother, True Jew. Stay vigilant, stay blessed, stay vigilant. Be a blessing to those who you meet. May those who you meet be a blessing to you. May goodness flow through you. May goodness flow to you all the days of your life. Most High Mama Papa willing, I'll be back with another one. But until then, gone.